Hello, my name is Mr. Davidson Jr., and this is my presentation on how I was shaped and formed. I'd like to see Wright Mills's social imagination concept, as this course has made me dive into my history, my parents' history, and the societies in which we grew up. They were my first real agents of socialization. So let's start with them.
My parents were born in the 50s, but were far too young for the hippie movement, but old enough to see the turmoil America faced. The assassinations of President Kennedy and Dr. Martin Luther King had communities all across America praying for peace. They both came from a culture of peace. They were both from small towns, had working class parents, but lived lower class lives. And they both had alcoholics for fathers. My mother's parents divorced due to my grandfather's drunkenness, while my dad's parents stayed together but had it worse than if they would have separated. My mother had a large church going family to help raise her and her sisters, while my dad grew up in a holler in Kentucky, miles away from a church, neighbors, and many miles away from any other family members. My mom made it all the way to the 7th grade, while my dad graduated but was enrolled in 11 different schools by the time he was 13. These things created a set of values and beliefs they wanted instilled in their child. They would raise me in the way they weren't and give me all the things that they never had. I was born in New Miami, a small suburb of Hamilton, Ohio. Due to the job shortages in Kentucky, my father moved to Ohio for more opportunities of employment. Such industries in the community like steel mills, paper mills, car plants. The area provided those in our community to provide for their families, maybe the way they weren't provided for as when they were children. My family was the lower class of middle class in a working class town. There were 4 churches in my town, and my father was pastor of one of them, Happy Corner Church. That institution, along with my parents, taught me certain mores and social contexts that would stick with me my entire life. Be kind to others. Don't lie. Love the Lord with all your heart, mind, and soul. Don't ask for anything when we set foot in this store. And the most important lesson, never touch alcohol. I've had the same 2 best friends since the age of 4. When we were younger, it didn't really appear to me how different our lives were. They weren't originally from New Miami like myself. Both of their parents were divorced and didn't go to church. Our little triad had the same culture but different on religious beliefs. They were a little less fortunate than I. One friend had 3 siblings, and the other lived with his mom and brother. Both their parents worked, but they couldn't afford the types of shoes and clothes or toys I had, but I really never asked why. We were in high school by the time I realized how hard it was to provide for 4 kids and the difficulties of being a single mother. That's when I was hit with the biggest dose of social reality. I was chubby through elementary school and grew larger the older I got. I had to make others laugh with me before they laughed at me. So by high school, I was fully engulfed in the looking glass self concept. I was what I thought they were thinking I was, which was a jovial class clown, nice guy, everybody's favorite. I made an effort to say and do the right things at all times. I wanted to be the most popular, the funniest, and coolest kid in school. If media taught me anything at that time, it was that those kids, they were the people that succeeded in life. They went places. Hollywood, New York. They would dive into whatever their dreams was, wholeheartedly, and being able to do so. The world was their oyster. At least that's the way it seemed in movies. In a small town, to be the coolest kid in school, or the most popular, wasn't very that hard to achieve. In my senior year, I had taken all the college prep courses because that's what my friends were doing. I was trying to join all the clubs. I was a senior class officer. I was on the journalism staff. I was in the school play. I was an office assistant. And I was a library assistant. I believe the more activities I did, the more things I would do in school, the cooler I would be. The way that society would see me would be Mr. Popular, and I'd be the coolest guy in town. It doesn't always work that way. However, it kind of did in my case. I even landed on homecoming court and was crowned prom king. Big fish in a small pond, I understand. But it did actually matter at the time. The underclassmen wanted to be a part of my group. Everybody would give me a high five if I walked into a room. Oh man, I was big stuff back then. I mean, literally, I was pretty big back then. My self-fulfilling prophecy was achieved. How I wanted to be perceived made my decisions on what my social identity would be. Given my social location and being a white male in America, the only thing that actually limited my choices was I spent more time trying to be the class clown and Mr. Cool than I did my studies. But in 1998, I did manage to graduate. By the skin of my teeth, really. My father was very adamant about me graduating with the kids that I grew up with, due to him being in 11 different schools and never really having a friend. But I did it. I succeeded. And after that, I found out the world was not my oyster. Media had lied to me. I had put too much feeling and thought into what others thought about me, instead of actually doing some hard work. I viewed my chances into getting into college slim. I didn't even apply to any. I did, however, have a few friends from the group go to college. They both attended the Ohio State University. During their sophomore year, they convinced me to move up to Columbus, just to help them pay rent, though, not to acquire any higher learning. It's pretty rough being a full-time student with a part-time job. The community in which we lived was far different than the one we had grown up in. You walked in groups at night. We left our cars empty and the doors unlocked so they wouldn't keep breaking our windows. Although I felt I wasn't living to my full potential, the social class of the area was full of drug addiction and poverty. I would get to know a few people in the community and learn firsthand what some only see in movies. Homeless people on the corner with signs, single mothers with 5 children waiting on a check, young men doing shady deals in shady places. I didn't view myself as better than these people, but it was clear that the year spent there changed my outlook and perception of what I should be doing with my life. I would work at department stores or bars or restaurants just to try to make ends meet. But I seen how my neighbors lived and feared if I kept on the path I was on, my future could turn out just the same as theirs. But my friends made it. They graduated. I felt a little bit lower than they, but by God's grace, one of them got a job at a software company and was able to get me on in the shipping department. OpenText is where I've spent my last 18 years. The diverse employees introduced me to new cultures of food. Downtown Columbus was much different than the areas that surrounded it. Instead of neighbors and houses, it was coworkers or other professionals just to make their next meeting or rushing out to lunch. The corporate world has certain ethics and conducts that I wasn't really versed in. We would have yearly trainings on office etiquette, diversity awareness, and harassment. I use these practices in life, however, it was very different corporately. I felt my social position change, and I thought I was much higher than I deserved. But I settled into the white-collar world and began to reimagine what my future would be like. When COVID hit, we went from the office to working at home, initially for a short time, but as the years passed and the pandemic grew, we were switched to fully virtual. This allowed me to move to the area I'm currently in. It's my dad's hometown in Clay County, Kentucky, Manchester. This is a very small town and rural area. The members of this community have impacted my life more than I ever thought anything could. With a population of around 20,000 people, the number of those unemployed, whether by limited education or wrong life choices, are staggering. I began to wonder, how could an entire community stay in poverty for decades? There are no real jobs there unless you earn a degree in teaching or nursing. But with the issues the community faces with mental health, drug addiction, and crime due to those addictions is so high, it seems like they will stay like that forever. It's a place where literally everybody knows your name. I joined a church as soon as I moved in, and it too has changed my goals. City of Hope Church. I'm plugged into an outreach group that spreads the gospel as well as provides prayer, food, and clothing to those in the area that are desperately in need. I'm on a social media team. It reaches more people outside this region of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I have several secondary groups and this whole congregate primary group. This culture has driven me to give to this community. My social determination is to become a counselor and help those cope with day-to-day living. All the lessons I've learned and trials I've went through up until this point of my life has made me decide to seek higher education and attain this goal, to help the community at large and make it a better and safer place to live.
That concludes my presentation. I'd like to thank you for all your patience and your guidance, Mr. Skaggs. It was a wonderful class. I hope I did well enough in it, and I really enjoyed it. Have a good one.